All right, folks, so we're here for our panel of youth entrepreneurship. I'm here with Mr. Daniel Harris of Relief Heating and Cooling, his sister Avion Harris, also Relief Heating and Cooling. My name is Austin Walker. I'm the entrepreneurship manager at Nussbaum Center Entrepreneurship. To my right here, I have Mr. Brian Lewis of Equity Funding LLC. To his right, I have Ms. Trinity Colbert of the Colbert Sisters, the Colbert Girls 3 LLC, as well as her mother, Ms. Felicia Colbert. So today we're just going to be discussing youth entrepreneurship and some of the roles and the avenues that our panelists took, discussing some of the challenges, setbacks, their goals, how they came to the decision making, some different techniques they've had when it comes to sales and just, dealing with the public per se in your entrepreneurship dream. So I'd like to start with Mr. Lewis here next to my right. We've had a conversation before about just youth entrepreneurship and where we got it started, so I'm more familiar with telling this story over. So my first question is going to probably go out to the whole panel, but just in different forms. I would say, as a child, who was instrumental in helping you establish these goals, period, in your life?
Instrumental in establishing goals has been my father, for one. He probably put the entrepreneur bug in me and my brothers, and that was in the form. Our first business when we were kids was probably, we went out and bought a whole bunch of gumball machines when we were very young for Christmas. And he said, okay, y'all clean them. We go to Sam's Club, fill them up with gumballs, and then we would go to different laundromats and different places and disperse them, and then we would go collect the money, do some accounting, bring it back, put in rolls and things of that nature. So that was probably someone who's been very instrumental in my life.
Okay. You one of my next question of just you remember your first business? Obviously you did.
Yeah, that was probably the first one, and of course there's been many others since. But
okay.
Absolutely.
Ms. Trinity, I'll give you the same question. Who's been instrumental in helping you develop goals per se?
Well, my mom, she helps me, and my dad takes me places that it's Jake and keep doing me and help.
Okay, great. Do you remember your first idea that you had?
We started off making the rubber band bracelets, and we would call Colbert bands. And then after that, my mom was like, how about we make this into a business for fun? And so we made it into a business. And we changed the name to Colbert Girls 3. And we sell shoe charms and more activities.
Is the business fun? Because a lot of people will say that I like that correlation your mom made between fun and business for fun. But is it fun?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Now, kind of bring the same question to the siblings over here, but in a different aspect, I guess, being the fact you are part of a family business and you got it. What goals who helped you establish those goals, I guess, growing up as well? I'll start with you.
I would say both my parents, they really said, you have anything that you want to do, just let them know, and they always did whatever they could to, inspire us to pursue our dreams or whatever we wanted to do. Nothing was impossible.
Okay.
I'll say both my parents as well. I always had to get up early and cut the grass. I was washing the truck with the vehicles that we had. Pretty much anything that I could do to help around the house, outside, that's what I was doing. And my dad was the one that was really going to be here.
That's how we're going to do it. Exactly. Were you paid at all before you became a full-time employee?
Yeah, I was paid. I used to get $1 here, $2 here, washing trucks. Because I got up early, like 5 o'clock in the morning. I was outside.
Well, how old were you then?
It was like 8.
Okay.
I was probably 8, somewhere around there.
All right, good. What would you say, I guess, even now, and once again, I got a chance to see you and actually stay as a father. What are some of those lessons you learned that maybe you can't instill those lessons yet that you held on to, that you already know that I'm going to instill this in my child?
Repetition, that's one major thing. The more you keep doing something, the more you keep doing the same routine, the more it gets instilled into you, and you'll keep that for the rest of your life. So repetition was one of the major ones, and just working harder.
All right, thank you very much. One thing about youth entrepreneurship that I've found is that, and even in my own, life growing up, is that you have to be taught how money works, and financial literacy is one of the things that's really important. I think some folks we forget that even as we get older. But I was going to start with this question and I'll start with Ms. Trinity and her mother on this one is, when it comes to financial literacy, understanding money, how are you different from some of your friends at school?
Because I'm different because I do different things and I'm a different person.
Okay, great. I love that answer. You're a different person. Do your friends talk about money? Like they got birthday money in school, they got money for Christmas, and what they did with it?
Yes, they do. They know that I do things like this and I'm not. So they support me and they talk about it.
Okay, so when you hear that they got some money, then your business sense kicks in and it's just like, hey, I need to maybe talk to you about how you're gonna get off some of that money that you just got as a gift. Am I right? Mm-hmm. All right, great. Same question, Mr. Booth.
So you want me to go back to my childhood?
Yeah, about financial. If even that was a discussion for you in your home.
Absolutely.
And maybe the differences you saw between you and maybe some of your peers growing up and their understanding of what money could do or not do.
Yeah, so every Wednesday night we would have what was called family night. Family night would consist of, it could be board games, movies. A lot of times the financial discussion did happen around that table and in that time. One of the things that we were taught early was the difference between an asset and a liability. And our parents literally said, all right, it's an asset. Why is this an asset? It's a liability. And because we understood that, it gave me a different edge about money. It gave me a different understanding about financial literacy. And of course, we would play games like Cash Flow Quadrant. Cash Flow, which is one of Robert Kiyosaki board games. Mm-hmm. Of course, we were all on the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, kind of reading that book, studying that thing. So, I definitely had a different sense of financial literacy growing up in my peers.
Similar, I would say similar. Our game was Monopoly.
Yeah, played that too.
That was my first incident in being.
I can't be beat, by the way.
We'll see. We'll have to see. We'll talk about that afterwards.
Okay, all right.
I got $20 games in my business.
Oh, man. Yeah. You wouldn't last me.
Okay, good. We'll see. But talk about, I guess, real quick, like you mentioned asset and liability. Just some of the youngsters outside who are listening, just the difference real quick between the asset and liability for them.
And an asset is something that, creates and generates money every month, or something that puts money into your pocket, and a liability takes money out of your pocket. So let's use an example. A house could be considered an asset or a liability depending on if you have debt on it, but we'll use something simple and say that a house, if you're renting it out and it's adding income into your pocket per month, that would be considered an asset. A liability would be considered a car, where you have a monthly payment on that car and it's taking money out of your pocket. So it decreases your balance sheet.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Now, same type of question, but a little bit different since you are fresh out of college.
Right.
You have a different understanding of what money can do and what it's supposed to do for you. What maybe some lessons you learned growing up in the family business with the finances that have helped you navigate through college into your early adult?
I would definitely say saving up money or having money for a rainy day. So when I went to college, it's easy to spend your money, and that's usually when you get your first credit card. So I know a lot of people were struggling with that. So I just tried not to get in on the shiny things and trying to save my money as best I could and navigate what I actually needed.
All right, gang, similar question, but different, being a little older. So when you got the first money that you had at 8, were you able to spend it on your own, or was that still discussed to you, like, hey, we need to save this part of that? We can save this part. Just explain what your goals from early, not goals per se, but just your lessons about finances from an early age, maybe through to maybe you were a teenager when you started putting things together.
Okay. So yes, I'm a kid. I was a kid just like the rest of you all, and I love video games. So the one thing I always did whenever I did get my money was at least spend it on video games. I had bought a PSP. Pretty much any game console you could probably think of, and I always maintained it with the money I brought in. But my mom would always be like, hey, Daniel, all this money, you need to put something aside so that you can have it on a rainy day. And we have like little treasure chest box. We put our coins and dollars in. And she would take some of my money. She would take some of my money and she would like, look, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And eventually it sinks with me, all right, well, now that I have this money, at least I can put some aside. So if I want to do something for myself, or if something comes up.
Now, as you grew into a man and you had friends who were, being 17, 18, 19, did you see a difference in maybe your understanding and maybe their understanding and maybe how you view money versus people who maybe weren't in a business or didn't have a family business that could teach them those things?
I would say coming directly out of college, I still didn't grasp a full understanding of how money really worked. And it took a while. It takes a while, and sometimes it just takes for you to get down to really understand what that means. And when you get there, especially balancing credit, having credit cards, and then paying your bills, and just taking care of yourself, it took a while for that to settle and sit.
One thing I would say that to piggyback on things like my mother used to always tell me, I always have a problem with my mother running our family. I always tell her it's not a business. And she would say, well, on contrary, it is a business. It very much is a business. Like, you have to get shoes, your brother has to get shoes. So, and it took me personally becoming, a husband, a father, to realize, oh, this is really truly a business. And I really have to make sure these things happen. And I think for me, it was more or less, okay, I know these things are rising. As my son gets older, I'm teaching him now, same thing about, okay, you get an allowance. How do we separate that? What's the percentage of your allowance you're going to save? When you go to the store, are you spending all your money at the store on what you're doing? Or are you able to buy two things? Are you able to come back later and make a decision? So I think it's very important that financial literacy is there, especially in our community, to help just understanding that, those Jordans are a liability. You know what I mean? So, but if you have to appreciate but if you have a shoe cleaning business, right, that is your asset, and your friends can buy the Jordans, and you can be cleaning them for them. Right. So, I think it's hard to get young people when they have money in their pocket because it symbolizes independence. It symbolizes things, so they want to hold on to it and say control those assets. So it's making them understand that, hey, this is for another day, or this is for tomorrow, or understanding what you can build off. That is very important. So I'm glad you were able to share that as well. I said I'll move on. I will once again start with the siblings. See, I'll start with you guys because at what time did you make the decision for yourself, if you did, that you were going to go into the family business per se?
Well, I decided when it was about sophomore year of college when COVID hit and everything was shut down, but the business was still running and they needed help in the office. And so instead of pursuing like the medical career, I just went to HVAC. And I started out outside with the technicians and all that, and then I went inside the office and started.
You get your hands dirty?
Yeah, I tried it.
Okay. Hands dirty. All right. Thank you, sir.
For me, I would say probably as soon as I finished high school, that's really when I knew, because I was going to school for heat and air conditioning at the same time, and I was going out on calls with my dad, and this is when the business was very young, and we didn't have the same fleet that we have right now, and yeah, it was. I was really good at it. A lot of people looked up to me, and even though I was young, I knew for sure, like, okay, I enjoy doing this, even though I have to crawl under some places that don't look fancy and have to sweat and bleed in certain areas. It was always worth it.
Okay. All right. So I will ask the same thing, but I asked your mother this question. When did you decide to go that entrepreneurship was the route for you? When did you make that decision?
Well, back in 1989, entrepreneurship was a big thing. It was just a side hustle or a side business. That's what we called it back then. So I started off doing wedding planning, event planning, and I just loved doing it. And it didn't seem like work to me because it was my passion, what I loved to do. And I proceeded to do it for years until the Bridezilla era came out, and then I said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore because the brides really became Bridezillas. So I moved into just special events. So I started doing special events, and I started doing things all over the community, doing things at our church, marriage ministry, and it just kept evolving to different things. But it was just for fun. It never felt like a business to me. It was just fun. And so I did run into some bumps where people wanted a lot of different things, but didn't want to pay for it. So back then, I would say they wanted a champagne wedding with a beer budget. You know, they say it like that, but it was like a beer budget. So like, you don't mix. You got to have champagne wedding. You want a champagne wedding. So at any rate, I did that for years, and then I finally decided to retire. And so I do have a couple of clients that won't let me go, so I do stuff for them often. And they don't mind paying, so I don't mind doing it. So, but I started again during COVID, like everyone else. At this time, I was selling popular jewelry, and I had been doing it for about 2 or 3 years. And COVID hit, and I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do? Because I had to stay home with my kids. I couldn't work. I did have a job. I couldn't work. I had to be there with them. They were too young to stay home. So, long story short, I started teaching them the basics. I started teaching them how to receive a shipment, how to check your product, how to make sure nothing is broken, how to do the inventory, and I started teaching them all those little basic behind-the-scene type of things that I knew that they would need. And from there, as a matter of fact, Wanda, I was talking to Wanda, and I said, what am I doing with these kids? And so that's she suggested. She was like, why don't you show them what you do in your business? And I was like, what? To be honest. And she said, because they can learn from that. I was like, okay. And so we actually did a whole thing. I actually hired them and fired them. Yeah, they got fired. They got fired as well. So we even did job interviews. I told them what job description was. And so I just started teaching them what would happen in the real world. And how, even though I'm your mom and we're talking, my business, this is what's going to happen in the real world anyway. So we did interviews, we did all of that. We had monthly meetings, everything. So I just taught them all of the background, basic information. And from there, we started doing a rubber band business, and the rest is history.
Now, for those who don't know, this is 1/3 of the Cobra Girls. So I'll ask you a follow-up question. Out of all of the three daughters, who, if all three is great, but who has had the spirit that you noticed first that just, okay, she got it, perfect. The one you brought with you today.
This is the boss baby. She is Felicia 2.0.
Okay.
So she handles business. She's the face of our company. She doesn't mind talking to customers. Of course, when she give them that smile, they can't help it. If they don't buy, they say, okay, well, here's a tip. Put it in your donation jar. So either way, she gets them either way.
So Trinity, what builds confidence for you to go out and be the face of the company? What helps you keep going all the time? If it's the money, you can say the money. We'll come back to it if you want me to.
Just going out and helping.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. And I'm glad you're saying. I like your answers because a lot of kids your age aren't thinking on that level of helping other people. It's what can I do for me? So definitely. But all right, we'll move on. Now, I'll start with you giving me some rules. Challenges are going to arise. I said, talk about some examples, I guess, either business or personal challenges or setbacks, and just maybe what made you keep going and fighting through. Like, what made you keep striving for that light at the end of the tunnel, if you hit that light yet?
Yeah. I guess being an entrepreneur, it comes with highs and lows. It comes with failures, and knowing how to look at a failure as not as an event, but looking at it as a stepping stone has really helped me to bounce back in a lot of areas. I've had businesses that we purchased or businesses that we started that failed and went totally left in what we've anticipated. And sometimes being able to pick the pieces up from there and say, okay, let me reevaluate what went wrong here. How do I fix this for the next go around? And you just keep pushing. As Daniel said, persistence.
There you go. Can you pinpoint something maybe in your youth that you may have failed that you pulled from now as an adult sometimes to help you know that, hey, if I can get over that failure at that age, now it's nothing?
Man, that's a great question. Growing up, I know I seem well polished and well spoken now, but I would probably be considered trouble child. So Me and Felicia know each other very long story. So yeah, she knows me growing up.
She's seen the evolution.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So,
I am proud of you.
thank you. I appreciate it. But I want to, and I see it's a lot of parents here too. I know this sounds, and I'm just saying this to say it. Sometimes when you have a child who is an entrepreneur and they have this energy and they want to move this and that, and sometimes the school systems, they want to suppress that because they don't understand it. They don't understand, why does he move? Why does he think this way? Why do they do it this way? You know, he's not like everybody else. That's one of the first signs of an entrepreneur a lot of times is you see it in school, because the school systems will point it out for you. They'll try to put them on ADHD or medicate them or something like that. But what it is they have a natural energy and they have a natural drive to want to, you know, do something, get it done, and they have a natural inkling for things. So I feel like growing up, that was one of my first things. But to go back to your question, where I had a major failure at as a child, I started a business. And I probably didn't start it right now that I look at it, but I read a book on credit repair. Here I am, a teenager, 13 years old. I read the book and said, you know what? People can pay me to fix their credit. So
At 13.
at 13, oh, you gonna get a kick out of this.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to go to the Secretary of State, you know, organize, set the business up, EIN, none of that stuff. So I said, look, I'm gonna go on the white pages. I start reverse looking up addresses and I start cold mailing people.
Oh, wow.
We felt millions, you know. I'm 13.
Yeah,
talking about I felt millions of people.
Yeah.
But
Don't have a credit card.
Here's the funniest thing. Here's the funniest thing, man. My faith and my energy directed towards the fact that I just felt like I could do this. I start sending these mailers out, and all of a sudden, these mailers start coming back with envelopes with checks in them. And my dad's looking up like, and I had my face on the outside of the thing with a shirt and a towel. You know?
Okay.
My dad's looking up and he's like, man, what in the world do you got going on? What's happening? All these checks coming to the house? You gonna go to jail? You know, jail fraud, the whole nine. And I said, look, man, I got a thing going, and if you want me in. But he tells me, he said, look, man, I don't know what you got going on, but you got to shut this thing down. I'm sure you can do it the right way, whatever. And I said, well, you know, I can't shut it down because I already got these customers and this and that. But needless to say, I started helping people fix their credit. And it flopped eventually. You know, my dad shut it down, that's why it flopped.
Okay.
But that was my first taste of being able to make money on my own from an idea that I spawned and generated from my brain, and then put it into action, and then it produced fruit back to me. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. I like that. I said, for me, I think middle school, I started selling suckers, and I got called from principal's office.
Yeah.
You know, I was selling quarter pop, and then they pulled handbook out.
You had the zip like
I
that?
sure did.
Okay.
It came in my locker, and I had it for it. They pulled the handbook out. My parents there.
You're not allowed to
You're
do
not allowed to sell this property, whatever. I even said, hey, what if I donate some of the proceeds?
Oh, that was smart.
Just like you making money. No, we can't do this at all.
Yeah.
So I was meeting my cousin in the parking lot. I tell people to be outside of school.
At the bus stop.
I get you before school, after school.
Yeah.
You know, I think my mother told me if I got to come up here one more time,
It's on.
it's on. And then my father found out how much money I made. He's like, hold on, let's let him do it. I don't pay for a lot of stuff. So I understand what you mean. Definitely, I think I fit that mold as well. So to understand that you are questioning things in school. You're asking why. Why do I need to know this? How do I need to know this? I think my answer used to always be, I've never seen my mother do this at the table. Like she does multiplication, subtraction.
What do you need this in life?
What do I need the rest of this for? Or when I'm at the grocery store, I'm not trying to figure out what the X solving for X.
Y equals MX plus B.
Exactly. Slow. I've never used slow in my life, but I know it's that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now my question would be the same for you guys as well, but it'd be a little different since you're in a family business. Maybe some of the personal setbacks you had where it comes to saying, hey, this is still my family versus people I work with, but other stuff.
Okay, so I would say it's like they expect a lot, but not in a bad way, of course. It's like they're going to tell you exactly what you're doing wrong or how you can improve yourself, just because they know what you can do. So you can't take it personal. It's more of like, okay, take the feedback, do better, and then great.
Well, how's that different? How do you make the differentiation between this is my boss talking to me and this is my mother or father talking to me?
I I don't know. Okay, so like I have this thing where I say 8 to 5 while I'm in the office, it's business. And then after 5 o'clock, it's like, it's on a different spectrum of the way we talk to each other and the way, what we talk about.
Okay. So you built that boundary yourself.
Yes, it took a while, but I built it down.
That's great. That is great. That's great. And I know how hard it is being, like I said, being someone's daughter or son, to create that boundary to say, hey, I'm not doing this now, and still be respectful. Still be grateful in your respect.
Okay.
All right, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, it's a little challenging to see where that barrier is, especially when you're younger and you don't really understand what's kind of going on. As like my dad's son, I was the one that's literally right up under his wing. So if he was on this job, I was on that job with him, and I was doing that for about 5 years before we started really getting into the depths of what we are as a company. And trying to differentiate that boundary line is like when you have to say something back to your dad and you're not sure if what type of response you're going to get. And I guess, it's trial and error type thing. But after I figured that out, which took a while, we had a very great relationship, able to work together without, of course we still clash, but it's like, that's part of the business.
Well, I was going to ask you that, being your son, father, when you see something that you don't think he's doing right, or something that you don't agree with how he's doing, how do you approach that as a son, and especially if you know you're right? And I don't know your father that well, but I know just out of experience of my own father, I have to double prove, triple prove that I'm right for him to sit there and go, oh, okay. Well, you can still do it this way, though. And, it's still not a full concession. It's a okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'm gonna do it the way this way. So explain how that may look like on a job where you guys are doing something, he wants to do a certain way, and it's like, that's not gonna work.
So one thing you have to really understand is respect first. Regardless if it's your actual dad, your parents, or your boss, you have to understand respect. Know your place, because there's always a time to speak, a time when not to speak. There would be moments where he would say something like, "This is what's going on," and I'd be like, maybe we should see it this way. I would softly interject my thoughts. And at that point, you just walk over because it's soft. So I knew I was like, well, I can't just softly invite my ideas. And so I was like, well, I have to be strong in what I'm saying. And so being strong in what you're saying doesn't necessarily always mean you have to shout aloud what you're saying. You just have to be true to what you're saying. But look, this is what it is. This is red, and because I say so, it's red. based off of what I've done in this field, based off of my expertise, because you are an expert at what you're doing, this is red. And after he was like, okay. It'd be like, okay, because it's still your dad, and I don't know. I haven't been in that position quite yet.
No.
But I guess I will be. But as an individual, you're never always right. So when things are, when you are the right person, sometimes you just have to stand up for what you believe in, regardless of what people think, or regardless of what your parents think. Still have to let them know this is what it is. That's a hard thing to do.
I can imagine, definitely. I said, I'm there. And your dad has a military background?
Oh, yeah.
So I can see a little bit tougher that he's probably a little more steadfast in how he wants things to happen. I'll ask you something different. What setbacks have you seen girls go through that they've been able to navigate so far on their own, maybe without you stepping in, that they've been able to work through?
Well, with them being sisters, that's a whole dilemma in itself, because she's the baby, she's the boss baby. The middle one does well, where do I fit in? And then the oldest is like, y'all do what I say, and nobody listens to nobody. So they have to go through that whole challenge of, okay, we're sisters, but we got to pull it together. And they do pretty good pull it together in public, because I'm like, people are watching y'all need to together. So I'm over there doing the number with my teeth and stuff. So they get it together. What else? What's your challenges with your sisters?
Is it that you're the youngest and they try to take advantage of you? That's probably the biggest one.
Yeah, they're like, you go do it. They like you talking, you go do it, So they try to push everything off on her because she does such a good job. But I'm like, it's a team effort, So, just that whole dynamics of sisters.
So how do you envision their relationship to grow from this as they get older? Your vision of how you look at them and how you maybe see down the future that they can work together still and just their own personal relationship grow through.
Well, that's why we ended up changing the name of Cobra Girls 3 because we wanted to not put ourselves in a box. Because I knew as they grew, they all would have different interests. And because we've already set the foundation and established Cobra Girls 3 LLC, they can just add divisions to it and add different areas to it. So I'm excited about what they're all going to do. And I told them it's okay. You're not going to be selling products all the time. You're going to be doing different things. And so I'm just waiting to see what they want to sell and what they want to do. And as whatever they want to do, we're going to support it. Because we already have the foundation set. And they already know how to work together and how to do things separately. Because there's times we have to do things just me and her, and sometimes all three, sometimes two. It just depends on everybody's schedule. So I'm excited to see where it grows from here as far as what each individual want to do. But it's always going to be under the Cobra Girls 3 category.
Trinity, what do you see yourself doing when you get older? Is it continue to run the business, or do you want to eventually branch out and start your own?
Did you cover yourself?
I want to become
Okay, that's great.
I have things set right now, so I'm just doing my best.
Okay. So is that turning to your own modeling agency? Does that turn into you being a photographer? Does that turn you being a fashion designer?
I just want to model.
Okay. All right. Well, I like the answers. I definitely like the answers for sure. All right. I will come start down here with our next question. And can you explain what success looks like for yourself on a daily or maybe even a weekly scale? Maybe not grand months, but just on a daily scale or a weekly scale, what success you feel success looks like to you? Let's start with you.
Success looks like for me. I was asked this question. I think as an entry to college. So I think that was and I think the answer I gave was me being able to do whatever I wanted at the leisure, that without any type of, I guess, what's the word? I do whatever I wanted without having to worry about funds, vacation, time off, things like that. That's what I had thought back then. But now, as success for me is being able to provide for what's necessary for me, and then also to be able to use the success I've had to push that on to others, help other people grow. Not keep the knowledge to myself, but also to spread that knowledge so that other people can thrive and we can all be a thriving community.
Okay, I like it. Now, I'll ask you a question for something different. Now, say you just graduated, correct? Mm-hmm. So let's go back to maybe your freshman year in high school. What at that moment do you think success looked like for you?
Okay, so back then, success for me would be just making it through the day, and I guess interacting with as many people as I could, because I was new, I was trying to get to know people, trying to find my way around life. It's brand new to me, so success would be making it back, making it through the day, smiling.
Okay. Would you, now, and at the time you said your family had the business, correct? Mm-hmm. So at any time were you thinking that how success measured family-wise or just personal success is how How do you went about it?
So by the time I was in college, I really that was my phase where I was like, it's all about me. So at that point, it was all about me and my success, I guess. And then, of course, I was still thinking about my family, but I was just.
About yourself. I got you. I'll ask you, all right, Mr. Lewis, since you started as a young man, very young man, what was your first thing of success to you as a young entrepreneur?
That differs, man. But I'm kind of, on the same lines as Daniel. And as a young entrepreneur, success is, naturally going to kind of be equated to money. And I did this and I was able to do that. As you get older, you realize that success really has no definition. And when I say it has no definition, it's because if you define it, then you become complacent. Like you'll stop and you'll never go to your maximum potential. I guess you could say success would be growing to your maximum potential. Like leaving it all on the table and taking it the highest. If you can make $1 million and that's your highest, then you become successful. If you have $1 billion in you, $1 million is not enough. You got to go higher. So that's how I would view success.
Okay. All right. I asked you the same question there for you when it comes to success. I'll tell you this, I had this for you. When you started your business with your sisters, when did you feel like it was a success? What did you sell with that day, or what did you do to think, we had a good day today. This was successful, what we did.
When we started the first time we did it, I was happy because we did really well, and I was really happy. I was like,
Well, was this your first time selling? It was your first time going out and selling? You guys did very well the first time. So you stepped up, you swung the first time, hit a home run, and said we can do this again. All right, that's great.
I think also for us, success is having return customers. And when they return, it was like, we had to come back, we just love your products. And so that's great for us. Success for me as a mother to my children is when I'm in the mall, our stores in the mall, and they say, how are the girls? And I'm like, hi, how are you? So they're like, oh yeah, how the girls?
You too, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's really cool because they kind of got known in the community, and so I think that's success. And then now that we're teaching other youth how to start a business and the basic business, the kids are just like, those 3 girls, and they just become little popular celebrities. And so I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. My kids are making a difference in teaching youth how to do what they did. So if we did everything backwards, because everything happened so fast. Mm-hmm. So I was like, if we can do everything backwards, we can surely teach everybody how to do it the right way. So that's success to us. And so we had our first workshop, and it was amazing. The kids they were very in tune. They were very thankful. They thanked us afterwards. And the little kid said, this is the best teaching I ever had. I'm like, wow. So that's success for us, being able to impact the children.
Okay.
Because that's our future.
Definitely.
I just had a question. I'm a liaison with the National Association for Entrepreneurs. The national organization started by Tika, and she used to live here in Greensboro. Her husband, Young, one of the past city of Greensboro city managers. Now lives in Washington. Global Gift for One Day. This is the organization, and she wanted me to just pass out the flyers for awareness for you guys. Blessings.
All right, thank you. Well, I want to start my next question with you guys. When it comes to starting your business, we talk about financial literacy. How did you raise capital for your business? How did you find it? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier today, but how were you able to raise funding to start your business, even showing them how to start the business with the money you had and being responsible that way?
So I decided to invest in my children, so I took my funds from my business at the time, and I told them once they made their money, they had to pay me back. And I was serious about that. And so because their first real event, because after they switched to Cobra Girls 3, their first real event was at the mall. They were vending at the mall, and they were selling the shoe charms, and sold like hotcakes, and we couldn't believe it. And so at the end of the day, they tell us what they made, and we couldn't believe it. I was like, okay, can I get my money back? And so they paid me back. And so I said, you have to pay back your dues and what you owe. And so that's how they started, with Mama's Money.
Okay.
And they paid my mama money back.
That's good. Okay, that's good. I'm glad you said it, because that was kind of my next segment question is like, who maybe was your earliest investors in that way, and who helped you out? I'll pass that same question to you, sir. How did you get the funding for your first business, and who maybe was your early investors, and how did you find that money to start?
So I guess I need to talk about the business where I use funding, because technically my first business that I started was a service business. So it was really kind of a,
That's a service I have.
right, I'm investing, investing my energy. But our first company where we used investor capital, we found funding through a lot of different sources. One of the main sources was relationships that we had with other people who had we had shown them that we had a track record or a proven record of being successful in what we do. And secondly is I've always had the mindset that money is never the issue, right? What it is always structure. So if you're starting something, if you have a good enough idea, the money always comes, it finds you, So if you put it together and it makes sense, then you can shop it with other people. You can create something that we call in our business a pitch deck or a pitch book, and you say, hey, I'm gonna go around and talk to people and see who's interested, and then from there you do what is called like a pooled investment, where you conglomerate the funds, bring it in, and then you give things out like a preferred return or whatever it is, having the structure may be. But I would focus more so on structure to answer the question, more so than I would on necessarily who's going to invest.
Okay. I think when I started my business, I think I just took my allowance that I had.
Right.
I just repurchased the items I needed.
Yeah.
And just resold them in
Which
that
is
way.
great too. That's smart.
Yeah, so I was already working service.
Yeah.
Like I started a service business as well. My service was vacuuming and cleaning in the house, and I got paid for that. And I took that allowance and able to terms we used back then were flipping. So
That's right. Yeah.
Flip the money, whatever, something for a bigger profit. But I'll ask you guys a little bit different questions, because I don't know if you were even on the ground floor of that. So I doubt you were, but I would say maybe how do your parents maybe invest in both of you to help you establish yourself in the family business, or even just on a level of maybe just getting stepping stone for your own goals?
Well, for me, I would say the first way was, so like during school, had to, they did this nice thing where like A's was a certain amount of dollars, B's was a certain amount of dollars, C's a certain amount of dollars. So it gave us like inspiration to get good grades, I guess, for a reason, and we would use that money for whatever we wanted to. And then going into the business, it was more of like,
For me, I would just say the most valuable thing I've ever had, or that they've given me to invest in was coaching. Honestly, I didn't realize that how valuable coaching would be, especially when you don't accept it. Because when you hear it, you're like, oh, just be a coach. When you need somebody to help guide you through your decisions and whatnot. And you first hear that, I'm a coach. Like, I've been doing this for how long?
Okay.
And so mentally I rejected it, but of course I was there. And then you hear what the coaches say, and you go to the lessons, and then you actually go in real life, and then you see how reality works. It's like, they were on something. And so when it finally clicks, then that's when you go back and you're just like, okay. But yeah, as far as I would say the most valuable thing that they've done as far as investing, I would definitely coach.
Now, I don't know if the young folks heard this or not, but I heard a man say that he had to go back and say he knew what his parents were talking about after a while. So listening the first time going through may be beneficial to instead of falling off the track and say, I listened the first time, because I would say, I've done that as well, where I've gone back and said, hey, you know what, Dad, you was right about that. You were right about that. I shouldn't be right. You're absolutely right. I was, he just smirks and goes, I told you. And for the youth that are listening, I think one of the biggest things that you could always give your parents is understanding that you are listening to them. You are taking their advice. You may not always agree with it, and you may not even want to follow it at all times, but you take the fact they're telling you something, you're adding it to your own mind, you're adding it to how you handle the day, and you may find different ways to navigate and say, hey, I went left right here, maybe I should, they wanted me to go right, but I got back right. It may have just took me a little longer to get back. So, like I said, I heard a young man say he listened to what his parents were saying. If he listened a little earlier, it would probably be easier for him now, but just take that as a grain of salt there. So, but we talk about challenges and setbacks, but I think as things like having a fun business or just starting a young business or being part of a family business, what are some good things that came from maybe starting a business early that you had fun with, that you look back and go, man, that really just was a good moment. Like, I just really it makes you feel warm inside now, something that you think of.
One of the major things of starting a business that came out good is what I'm hearing is when people, as Felicia said, when people come back to you and talk about how much of an inspiration that you've been, or how you've encouraged them to take a leap of faith and step out and do something because they saw you take the risk and take that chance. So those are rewards that you cannot count monetary wise, but those rewards, they're big and they make great impacts on people's lives. So I would say the impact that I leave on others.
Okay. I think you hinted on something of helping other youth as well, and being able to inspire the youth to say, hey, I can do this, or as well. Is that part, would you say that's part of maybe some things you feel good about?
Well, most definitely. Yes, it's wonderful to have kids want to know, and they really are listening, and they really want to figure out how they can do this. And so we want them to know you can do this. You just have to have, it's not for the faint of heart. You have to have determination. You have to have some skill sets that, and you can tell right off which ones have it, which ones don't, which ones are trying to figure it out. And it's okay. All that's okay. But it's great to have the kids just be, when we had our pop-up last year, we had 2 pop-ups, and we had other kids that already had businesses. And to be in a room full of kid businesses, and they had their products set up on the table, and they were doing their pitches, and just to see that, to be able to add water to that seed, which is awesome. So yes.
Right. I'm glad to hear that. I think we focus a lot on the setbacks and negatives. So hearing some happy stories of like, oh, this is good. Excuse me, this is what happened. I think will give people that okay, it is a light, there's a rainbow at the end. I can get there, or there are roses to smell along the way. I'm saying, most of that said, being a part of family business. What are some of the things, happy moments you guys have been through of just being in that business, being a part of entrepreneurship from a young age?
Yeah, I think it just kept our family close because we always had something to bond over or had a reason to all come together and discuss things. And it made it okay, like it doesn't matter what age you are. As long as you have a good idea and you know what you're talking about, it doesn't really matter how old you are. Like for instance, I'm training my grandma right now for her position at Relief.
Is that who that is coming there? Okay. I didn't know who that was until I see it come in there. I was like, okay, I'll say good morning to her when I see her. All right. Okay, yeah, I like that. So you're saying that the family nucleus, like I said, if you know something, if the youngest person has a say at the table, if the idea is good and valid, they'll be listened to as well to help that bond.
Right.
Perfect.
I would say, yeah, once you see the fruits of your labor, like kind of pay off, you're able to get back and then actually enjoy the time. Not even necessarily just working, it's just enjoying the community, the people that appreciate the work that you do and what you can get through that. It's really hard to find people that do quality work and that are genuine for the customer that they're doing business with, and people really appreciate that. You always hear, especially when I come along, yada yada, and you guys are great company. I'd love to get you back out here again. And I'm always going to refer you to somebody else. Those are the things I always like. That means I'm doing my part.
Okay. I will start here. It's probably the best question for you since you actually started here. I started with you. I know you wrong.
No, that's all right. I enjoy it.
What correlation can you make being a young entrepreneur that helped you evolve into a dad, father, a man in general, just becoming an adult? not necessarily anything that have to do with your businesses now, but just maybe lessons you learned as a youth entrepreneur that just you took with you in your evolution to becoming just an adult?
Man, that's a loaded question, and it's a good one. As a father as well, what I have learned and what entrepreneurship has taught me is it's taught me responsibility first and foremost, because a lot of times as an entrepreneur, you have people depending on you, especially when you're in a business where you have employees or you have other things that evolve around you being successful. And that's something, having that entrepreneurial spirit early already made me a responsible individual and a responsible man. So it was natural for me to take that responsible character and instill that into my children, teach them entrepreneurship and try to, push them at a higher level. So my goal in my mind is I want to have a foundation and a base that they stand on. And this is something that I created or built for them so that they can be elevated and they can take it to the next level. So to answer that question, it's definitely made me a very responsible person. It's taught me to see problems that come up and figure out ways to get over them and become a problem solver.
I'll ask Ms. Colbert as well, like I guess when you started your business, how has that helped you maybe evolve into, being a better role model for your daughters or an adult in your own life, and just maybe just traveling through the grocery store by yourself, or are you out and about, or you on vacation by yourself? How has this maybe the lessons you learned through entrepreneurship at a younger age and just helped you evolve?
It just helped me to be able to teach my children because I didn't have that. My mother was a single mother and she worked third shift and she just slept and ate. That's all she did. And made sure we had what we needed. So I wanted something different for my children. I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur because, like I said, back then it was just a side thing to do. And then later as time progressed, I'm like, okay, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay, wow, what does that entail? And so after learning, the ins and outs and the good and the bad, I'm able to teach my children things that they would have never known if I hadn't taught them. And so I take the time to teach them these things so they can implement it in their life and be able to grow with it in whatever area they're doing, whether it's business, life, or whatever. So just taking the time to teach my children because I didn't have that. So I wanted to make sure I give it to my children.
You're able to just see where you maybe wanted some help, or like they just say you're going to fill that void for your children, so they won't have to worry about going through that as well.
Gotcha. They can be more advanced too,
Definitely. I said, since I said, new father, husband, I guess same thing. What have you learned from growing up in the family business that have helped you just evolve into the man you are today?
I would say for me, one of the most valuable things, as I mentioned earlier, structure. You have some sort of foundation to build off of. Well, first of all, if you create a structure that works, then you have something to back on and move forward from. So, structuring my finances so that my family would always be okay if I get in a pinch or something was to happen in the moment, or even just to have fun in the future. Things like that is what I'm preparing for now, or what I'm prepared for. So when I do want to increase the size of my family, or want to go on vacation, have some fun, things like that, that's I think one of the most valuable things I took from this, as far as
Second question. I know you were younger, so I know it's still. But what can you say that you can pinpoint to say I've watched this, I've seen this is what I'm taking on?
Yes, I would say usually I was afraid of problems. Growing up, I didn't like having to deal with problems. I always saw it as like a bad thing. But now I see it as just an opportunity to create a solution, be better for next time. So it definitely helped my energy because I'm always positive. I like to be contagious in that way, so it just spreads positivity around the office. It just helps.
I would say you always got a smile on your face when we see you, for sure. For sure. But like I said, I'm glad to say that you guys can make that correlation between that entrepreneurship and growing up and to becoming seen what the factors are. Because once again, I mean, you do take lessons from you do learn things as a child. You say, hey, this is what I don't want to do or what I want to implement for my own life. So I mean, we all can pinpoint lessons we may lack, but what specifically when you look at building a business as a youth, when you look at those situations you're in, how do you identify those situations later on in life again that are going to come and maybe be more complicated? But now you'll be able to navigate those waters a little bit better. I'll keep moving on. So we're almost coming to an end here. Got a few more for you. Throw some words out for everybody. I'm giving different words for you. And I will start. This is more of a phrase. What does critical thinking mean to you? And I'm sorry, let me say, these are some of the avenues I found when it comes to if you want to install the children. Some of the words that you're going to hear are some things that I know I talk to my son about. I know I talk to some of his friends about. I'm fortunate enough to coach young men in football as well as some baseball. So these are some of the words that I use when I come to dealing with youngsters and trying to say, hey, this is what things you need to think about. And you can be accountable. You can have critical thinking. You can build a structure for yourself, like Daniel says, when it comes to maybe picking out your clothes the night before every night, having your lunch prepared the day before every night. Those create a structure for you that you know these things are going to happen for you. You know where they're at. They're creating good habits. So you almost do these things without thinking about them. That creates a structure as well for yourself. That creates a habit for yourself. That creates just something to say, hey, I'm in control of, hey, when my mother or father ask me to do something, I can say, oh, it's already done. Or it gets to a point where they stop asking you because they know and they trust that you've already done it. It's already completed. I don't have to worry about it. And we go from there. And hopefully those structures build into other good habits. Like I don't have to ask somebody's homework or ask about her homework. I know it's complete. I know if I ask to take the garbage out, it's done. So when you build those things, those structures, that can help benefit you in starting a business and starting, working with others and working together. So I want to ask, I like the fact you said structure just as growing up and those things, because those are just important. And structure can be built on something so small as, hey, I put my shoes by the door every day when I come in right here. It starts with little things. But I'll start down here. What is critical thinking?
I would say critical thinking is like taking a scenario or situation and looking at it from different viewpoints. Like if we have our family meetings and we'll talk about a topic and we'll ask everybody what they think about it. We'll also look at pros and cons to the scenario, and to be open to that your idea is not the only idea, and to be open to say, okay, well, I can try that. So we've done that, and so that's nothing critical thinking is.
Trinity, since you are 1 of 3, do you know what accountability means? Say it again.
Like working to practice.
Yeah, or doing your part, like your responsibility that they're asking you to do, that you're accountable. I hate using the word to define it, but you're actually there to say, hey, I did my part. You can rely on me. I did my part. Are you doing your part? So how does that mean to you, accountability to you when it comes to dealing with your plan? I don't say dealing, working alongside your sisters.
Like you said, together with your sisters.
Working with my sister.
Okay. Do you find if someone doesn't do their part, do you get frustrated?
Sometimes I get
Yeah, go ahead.
like I'm in charge of doing the pots and my sister is in charge of doing the kitchen. When she doesn't do her part, it gets frustrating because I can't do my part.
And she's not being accountable for her part, which puts you in a bad position. And now y'all both in trouble. Thank you. Connections, sir. That's your word, connections.
When I hear connections, I think of network. I think of people that you connect to, relationships that you can build, and win-win situations. It's not a one-sided thing. Connections works both ways, and when you're dealing with connections, if you mess up that relationship and you don't, rectify how it was messed up, that can also be injurious or can harm anything that you do in the business because they're bridges to other people.
Now, I'm going to give you teamwork and you resilience because he already talked about it. So go with teamwork.
We know he's persistent.
Yeah. Go with teamwork. What does teamwork mean?
Teamwork, for me, that would be everyone working together, having a leader, and people following or doing their part within the team to accomplish a goal. So, if it's even if it's people that you don't know, you can still work with somebody that you've never seen before. As long as you have open communication of what's going on, you can just discuss it, and does his part, I do my part, and everybody should be happy if the result is good. So.
Do you find it teamwork being a little different as, you know, and I'm not sure if you necessarily if you work with your dad all the time or other family members, do you find teamwork to be a different dynamic when you're dealing with someone who you deal with on another level, on a personal level?
Yeah, so with my dad, we don't really even have to talk, honestly. We get on site, point fingers and do this and that. Once we figure out what's going on, we're working. And honestly, it's to the point where if he's doing something and I notice what he might need, I would already have the tool. So that's how close we got as far as teamwork. We're almost the same. With people who I'm working with for, I would say a new employee or new individuals in college, always had to do something with some type of teamwork. I guess the hardest part is always figuring out who's going to be the organizer or the leader. Once that is always established, then things usually fall in line.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna give you resilience.
Resilience. When I hear that word, I think of, I guess, just not giving up and just being able to try over and over again, and not being afraid to try new things or different ways to approach the problem, or even reaching out for help and taking other people's opinions on what you can do, and then I don't know, just keep on going.
So you run the marketing, correct?
Yeah, I'm in the marketing.
All right, so you run the marketing, and how did your resiliency come up in marketing per se, of marketing for, what you may have an idea for versus what maybe the hierarchy tells you that you need to have an idea for?
So I guess the hardest thing was doing social media, because it's more of like a newer thing with like Instagram, I guess, and Facebook. So I have an idea, I'm just like, this will catch people's attention, and they're like, maybe you should put it to a sentence with the periods and the punctuation being correct. And I was like, no, they don't need all that. So it was more of and then I guess when you create a new idea or like picture, everybody wants to like the picture, but it's not about everybody liking it. It's like, does it show what the company is about?
Gotcha.
Brand.
Yeah. Okay. So that being resilient, just the fact that you have to keep pushing and push people through a new door. All right. I said I got a couple more, just two more questions when we wrap everything up. But same question for everybody, and I'm going to come back on it because you're part of this question. But I'll start on this side, especially for the new dad here. Do you have a vision for your legacy?
That's a good question. It's a really good question. So, I always wanted to, as far as my vision for my sons, my family, it's more of, I want to have the structure available. I want to have the ability to show them, look, this is the blueprint. So not necessarily, they don't have to take after me. If they want to take after me, I would love that. But I want them to understand what works, what gets them to be successful, or how they will define success. And once I can show the receipts, because people are always wondering, well, he's saying this and saying that, but what do you have? Mm-hmm. And so I want to be able just to show the receipts to my son, my family. Say, look, if you want to be great, this is what I use to get you there. This is however you want to, but using this information should help them to get there.
So what I hear you saying is that you want to create the pathway, but for them to make the branch on his own, but you want to make sure that legacy is set where he knows the way to go. Exactly. What would you envision your legacy to be, since you kind of just getting out there and starting out?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I would just strive to continue on what my parents started and making it as big as we can. Keeping it, being able to keep our family involved. And I would say when I started my own family, being able to instill those things that help drive me and the things I like the most.
All right. That's good. I like that. Same question. You got one or two kids?
I have 3 children.
3, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Don't dismiss any others.
Yeah, please don't. For me, I see generational wealth. I see my children being international, global, and scaling, businesses, and just what I've started for them, just on a global scale, doing business other places outside of our own backyard. I know there's acres full of diamonds here, but I want them to get out and explore the world, have different experiences. So I definitely, it's generational wealth. I want my grandchildren's children to live off of things that I put in place.
Okay. So I'll ask your mother this question.
I want them to build their legacy how they want to. However, I would like for them to continue to be entrepreneurs, to continue to be influential in the community, to continue to love people and serve people like they do now, and to continue to enjoy it. It's not about you, it's about what you can do as a team with others to better everybody. It's not all about you. And just want them to be great people, continue to be close, because I tell them they ought to have. Something that their dad and myself, they ought to have. So I want them to continue to stay close and be a sisterhood and to create sisterhoods all over the place.
I think one thing for me when it comes to legacy, I think it kind of dawned on me later on, maybe with my own child, is that I realized, how I grew up. My child isn't growing up in the same type of neighborhood. He's not growing up in the same environment. And nothing to knock my parents, just where they were at versus where their parents were at. So I look at the fact that just what's next for him, that, man, he's going to be able to do this, or my daughter's going to be able to do this without thinking about it. I have the expertise to help them with a business if they choose to go and start a business at an early age. My son's already asked about a lemonade stand, things of that nature. How do I put more money in my pocket? So I have the expertise where my parents didn't have that. My parents, message, and maybe some of our parents' message was, go to college, get a job, work that job for 30 years, then retire, they give you a watch, or that wasn't the message in my home until I got to college, where it was like, hey, there's a 401k, and there's this, and you gotta put your money in, and make sure. So when you want to start a business, even as a youth, whatever, it's good to have the thought process of where is this going to put my family at later on, because I heard one thing I heard about Floyd Mayweather, who's familiar with Floyd Mayweather. His father said, they asked him, well, did you regret how you raised your son? And he said, no, look at him now. And they say things like, he would be a man a lot longer than he was a boy. But I want him to think as a boy of the legacy he'll already be able to provide for his children later on. Because even though we look at, I remember being a young man and saying, oh man, I can't wait to turn 20. I can't wait to be 25. And I'm out of here. But that time goes by so fast. And when you hit manhood or womanhood or adulthood,
I wish I could go back.
Well, I wish I listened to
I do this different.
I do that differently. Exactly. I mean, just the fact I would pay attention more in this class. I would have, not chase this person around or something like that. So, when you think about it, and as I said, young men and women that here, think about the fact that, 5 years goes by faster than what you think it is. If you're in 8th grade today, in 5 years, you'll be out of high school. If you're 15 today, in 5 years, you'll be 20 years old. You'll be looked at as an adult. So the decisions you're making now at 15, at 18, at 13 can affect you when you turn 20, when you turn 21. So even I said, if you want to start a business now, those things get you prepared for maybe a corporate job that you can say, hey, I've done this, I've ran this before. You can start to say, I'm not going to work for anybody because I know how to start my business. I know what to do. So those are things that I want you to kind of take away from just the panel today, just knowing that, hey, decisions you're making now in 7th grade, 8th grade, or 5th grade, or 6th grade can affect you later on for the good or the bad. So, if you have people in your corner that are telling you what to do or showing you the way, take advantage of those folks that are in front of you, pick their brain, answer them. You will not like what they tell you. You won't agree with it because you'll look at them and say, oh, well, they know, they're not here. I've got a younger brother who's 10 years younger than me, and our views on the internet are 2 different things. And we're 10 years apart. That close. Our views on the internet, our views on working are just 2 different aspects. I got the, hey, you go to college and get your education and get a job. He got the, hey, start a business speech. And so just our views and what he does, and And I would say he's a serial entrepreneur. He has a job, but I mean, he's always trying to find something else to do whatsoever. And I admire him for that. When I had to kind of break out of that as I got older, like, okay, I went to college, I got my degree, I did this, and now I got a job. I hate my job. Like, I hate my job, right? I'm not making enough money as I think I should. I have ideas for a business that could be better. So that I had to break out of that thought process to slide out, maybe, you know, start my own business or start different things. But I like that, the fact that we've been able to come together today and actually give some good information.